Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of UGA Sports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Dayne Young and former Georgia Bulldogs head coach Jim Donnan. The Bulldogs are 8-0. They just whipped Florida. 3 quarters of absolute domination, 1 quarter of absolute confusion. So, very interesting game. A lot of folks worried about this number 1, number 2 matchup coming up with Tennessee, as well they should be. Tennessee looked fantastic on Saturday. First number 1 versus number 2 matchup in Sanford Stadium, I think in history, one of the only 3 top 5 matches to be played in Sanford Stadium. Everybody before the season was complaining about how we don't have any good home games. Well, you got a hell of one coming this week. So College Game Day will be here. SEC Nation will be here. The eyes of the college football world will be on Athens this Saturday at 3:30 as Georgia tees it up against Tennessee. Of course, we want to talk about the Georgia-Florida game. I mean, there's a lot of Tennessee talk to come on the show as we progress. We had some breaking news this morning about Nolan Smith being out. That'll play into it. But first, I think it would behoove us to get Coach Donna's thoughts on the Florida game because a lot of what we saw in that Florida game will have impacts on the Tennessee game. So it's, the fact that you had Nolan Smith go out, that you had, offensive linemen moving around, that you had Don Blaylock kind of get banged up. Xavier Truss missed part of the game there. There's just a lot of different things that went on in that game, and I want to get Coach's overall thoughts. Before we get to him real quick, please do us a favor. Hit the like button and share this with your friends. Let us know where you're watching it from. Put your questions in the comments if you have them, and we want to give a big shout-out to all of our sponsors, of course. We'll mention them later on the show, but, of course, I want to mention Athens Ford, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, Dead Soxy, Prime Shrimp, and My Perfect Franchise. Coach, let's get your thoughts on the Georgia-Florida game. I know we had almost thousands of people watching the show with you and Dayne, but I want to get your thoughts on the Florida game, kind of what stood out to you.
Yeah, I just want to also point out, which you did very admirably, about Game Day and also SEC Network having whatever they call their shows coming in here. So later in the week, Dayne and I are going to talk to the 2 hosts of those broadcast. Paul Feinbaum will have a separate show with him, and we'll also have one with Reese Davis getting their take on what's going on, and exclusively on the Rivals Network here, like we try to do to help our fans out, to give them a little bit more insight in what the regional press there and Paul Feinbaum, and also the national guy, Reese Davis, who really has been great about being on with us. So,
and those are favors that they're doing for me, Roddy. I put the request in, and they said, well, Coach is around, I guess so.
They setting it up. But the biggest deal for us is you might be on the lookout for that. We'll record it Wednesday and then put it out. So given their take. But from the Georgia perspective on the game Saturday, I was just really amazed at our efficiency, at the preparation, the way we went about our business. It was just a very dominant win in a lot of phases. Certainly the third quarter is something that people have a tendency to focus on, and rightfully so. We got a little bit too big for our britches there on defense, and then all of a sudden they did the things, Florida, that we knew they were capable of coming into the game, running right at us, jumping around and hitting some balls in the seams. So we had a busted coverage, which, you can't have those in big games, but offensive preparation was there. We had some good work. Third quarter, we didn't have many plays on offense, and consequently, 2 of them were turnovers, and so that really limits your possessions. But when our backs were against the wall, we rose up and really had 2 magnificent marches and some really good coaching by Munkin and the offensive coaches as far as what they did. We still have some lapses where we don't really force the ball to Bowers, which, I guess that's just part of it, but hopefully we won't have that Saturday. But defensively, the first half was as good as we could play, except for the one penalty where Bear Alexander didn't hear the whistle. And what happened there, according to a couple of coaches I talked to, we had a call that we didn't like, and so we Coach Smart overrode the call and called a timeout, and then Bear didn't hear it. And they got a 15-yard penalty and got that, that momentum going. But we could sit here for days and nights and centuries and talk about what went wrong and all that. But I would think that most of this show needs to be dedicated to Rocky Top and what we got to do in that game. And certainly 8-0 with the rebuilding team. Any way you look at it, 28 new guys 28 guys we had to replace. Just really having a great year, and I think it'll continue. Really took advantage of the off week and took advantage of having Carter in the game, and really bad news on Nolan Smith, one of our 3 best players on defense. Losing him, it's kind of like losing Anderson last year, like we lost him right there down the stretch.
That's a good point.
He played all and affected our defense a lot. Hopefully, some of these other guys can take up the slack. But the big deal is having Carter back. Just I guarantee that Mays kid's having nightmares thinking about him lining up on him, because I promise you we're going to line him up on his head and let him jack him back into the quarterback. So that's about all I got to say.
Dane, your thoughts on the game?
Florida or Tennessee? Where do you want me to run?
We'll start with Florida, then we'll move to Tennessee, because there's a lot there for both of them. There's a little carryover.
Yeah, a lot of things I think to be encouraged by. One, that Georgia was really good on the line of scrimmage, dominant in some aspects of the game, not always. And that includes some reserve offensive linemen that had to come in, which I think is going to be a big key moving forward for Georgia, is how are offensive linemen that are rotating in that weren't starters, and they're being thrust into some positions. Same with the defensive line as well. With Stetson Bennett, I actually found him to be very in control most of the game. The interception that he had intended for Dejan Edwards was horrendous, and that's the play that Georgia has to avoid. But other than that, I mean, the Don Blaylock interception was just one of those weird, like, there's nothing Stetson can do about that. There's not much Dom could do about that. It just happens. And overall, I thought Stetson had Georgia in the right position. The offense is scoring points and it's moving. Yeah. It's not always the most explosive looking thing, and I don't think it gets the credit that it deserves. But overall, Georgia can score with Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm just going to point out one thing about the Tennessee. This guy's the most heavily scrutinized person that I can ever be associated with any program of all the ones I've ever been around, coaching, playing, everything. He is spectacular quarterback. I'm not talking about good, average. He's spectacular. All the things that Monken asked him to do, not many quarterbacks in the country could do. All the calls he has to make, every chance he has to fail, every chance he has to succeed. He's had an unbelievable grade. If you graded him out, talking to our coaches on the year, even in the Missouri game, we had some guys bust some routes. Just thank the Lord that we've had this guy. Kirby Smart has got a $10 million contract, and he deserves it. But I guarantee Stetson's helped him get that. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm on any kind of off the bandwagon. You can get mad at me, you can scrutinize him. It's always Stetson did this, but he didn't do that. Nothing to say about what Dane just said.
Well, that's what we're doing about the whole game, though. That's why I said you had 3 great quarters, you had 1 bad quarter. And how does that relate to this upcoming game? And I think Dane points it out. Georgia put 555 yards of offense on this Gators team. They put 42 points on the board. If you score 42 points, you're supposed to win. We can complain about the third quarter, but you had a fumble. You had a pick. When Dejan Edwards got bumped off his route, things happen. The reason I wanted to say instead of just looking straight ahead to Florida, and maybe not, I don't want to dwell on the bad stuff, but it comes out that's where everybody's so nervous about this Tennessee game is like, can you avoid those same problems and be the offense that we saw through 3 quarters and be the offense that you have seen against Vandy and Oregon, just that they were feeding the tight end so much in the first half. I'm sitting there just raising my arms. I'm like, hey, look, it's Brock. It's Darnell. It's Brock. It's Darnell. It was just glorious. And then they mashed, and Kenny McIntosh ran over some people, threw some people. Dejan Edwards scooted through. Everyone's like, can Georgia score enough points to beat Tennessee? And I'm with Dane. I'm like, yeah, as long as they don't turn it over. And that's where my fear comes in, Coach. But other than that, I'm bullish on this offense, bullish on Stetson.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be the onus on the offense to score points. I don't think it's going to be a game like Alabama, 50 points. I don't see that. I think our defense has way too many alignment situations where we won't be misaligned, where we'll be where we're supposed to. We won't give them a lot of easy shots. We got the home crowd going for us. Our offense will keep the ball. I don't think we got to score every time. We got to play field position. We got to take advantage of the pressure we get with Carter. I'm just looking at what we got to do to win, but what we can't do is turn the ball over, that's for sure. But, I've told teams before that you can't turn it over. We had 3 turnovers against Florida in the first half the year we beat them, and we still won. You just never know about that. Yeah. It's just statistically you shouldn't have a real good shot against Tennessee if you turn the ball over, that's for sure. But I'm not willing to say that Tennessee's got all this great stuff until they actually do it against us. They had a hard time with Pittsburgh, a team that's 500 right now. They beat a really good LSU team down there, and they beat a good Alabama team and really demolished Kentucky. So a team that South Carolina Gamecocks demolished too. So we'll just have to see. I respect Tennessee's team greatly, and I respect what they've accomplished. But I also know that let's don't shortchange what we got. We got to put our strengths against their weaknesses. Their defense gave up almost 700 yards 2 games this year. So they're not going to be some magic potion. I mean, I wouldn't trade our line for any line they've gone against. Kentucky, are you kidding me? Alabama, are you kidding me? I think we'll knock them off the ball, and we'll make a lot of big plays on offense.
And there's a perception and reality thing with Tennessee, because the perception is they have this passing offense that's unstoppable, and they go to it so often. Tennessee runs more than it passes.
Yeah, they got a good running game, and it's all based on how you cover their receivers. I mean, if you've got a 5-man box, they're going to run the ball some, and that means their lineman's going to have to block our front group. Last year, we ran a lot of 4- and 5-man pressures on them. Once the game we got used to him, and we got him off his spot, and that's what you got to do. The guy's not a real scrambling quarterback to throw the ball. When he runs, he usually runs. He doesn't move around and then throw the ball. So we got to get him off his spot, knock him back, and I like the way we can cover people. Now, we're not great back there. We're not going to stone them, but I don't see those guys running down the field with blinker lights on either.
Yeah, well, let's talk about a little bit about this defensive front, getting to him, getting him off his spot. You were rushing last year. You had Nolan Smith. I think the news this morning. We found out last night that we heard last night that Nolan Smith had his pec injury was bad and might need surgery. We were able to confirm it this morning. We put out the story. A lot of people woke up to the news that Nolan Smith is out for the season. Godspeed to him in his recovery. Hope it's quick and he's ready for the combine in March. Or maybe even the season. I don't know, but it's not good. So, Coach, what does Georgia do without Nolan Smith? You saw the drop-off. I mean, you might not say it was because you're kind, but to me, it just seemed like there's a huge drop-off of Nolan Smith left. And that's not a shot against Chaz Chambliss or Robert Beal, but they're not Nolan Smith. And Marvin Jones Jr. was out with a flu. What does Georgia do to replace Nolan at Jack?
Got to use different guys in there and move them around. Chambliss coming off a hamstring injury, so he's not really 100%. Beal's very capable. I like Marvin Jones. You might see some of these groups like we did last year, where they moved some people around and put we might put Michael Williams out there. It just depends on what the down and distance is. You got to win first and second down against them some and get them into some obvious passing situations, because they're not a pass protecting team. Most of their passes are off play action, where they fake up in there and then give them some help. So it's going to be kind of a chess match. But let me just tell you, Georgia hadn't been sitting around there with all those analysts and all those people over there getting ready for Georgia Tech. I mean, even though we'll be ready for Tech, we've been working on these guys for a long time. and we'll have a good plan. I wouldn't trade Kirby and Schumann and Muschamp for any defensive coaches in the country.
How do you prepare for this? Kirby said, was asked about it, and he said the same thing about other teams that go really fast, have really high-powered offenses. Your scout team can run the same plays, but they can't do it as well as a team that does it every day. And, people point to the fact that, Florida hasn't seen a defense like this. Tennessee hasn't seen a defense like this. And Tennessee struggled with Pitt or struggled with this team. I'm like, well, Georgia's and all these other teams hopefully are getting better each week. And so Tennessee looks to be getting better each week. Your scout team can't duplicate it. How do you prepare for this? Like you said, they've been doing it for a while, but what do you do to prepare for it?
Well, what you do is let your own offense go against your defense some, because our own offense can line up quickly and run some plays, maybe not necessarily the same ones Tennessee does, but at least make you get lined up. You look throughout that Alabama game, Alabama consistently was trying to get the calls in, and you can't be thinking about what your calls are. You got to have your regular calls, and then you got to have no huddle calls where you just look at it and go real quick. You got 1, 2, or 3 calls, and then you go to it. But I know some teams just have one check and line up in that all the time. Well, you can't do that because they'll eat you up. So, but simulating it in practice is hard to do. But what we do a lot, which I like under Coach Smart, is we'll do some half line stuff where half the field will be with one huddle going against half the defense, and then on the other one you'll run a play and go against the other defense, just to simulate real quickly what you got to do. So there would be maybe two wide receivers and the right guard and right tackle and the back and the quarterback going against one group real quick, and then on the other side. But obviously you got to get all 11 too, but that's a way to break it down and do it. And then another thing you can do is just let your offense go out there and use their fast stuff. And we'll do some fast stuff on Tennessee ourselves too, because it worked the other day. I mean, we ran a good play down on the goal line after we just had a big play to Bell, and that's what you don't want the defense to get lined up quick.
I love it. We're going to take a quick break. I want to mention a few of our sponsors. One big one that's new for us is the folks at My Perfect Franchise. It's Andy Ludecky, and I had one of our DawgVent readers reach out to me and said, "Hey, can you give me his number? I'm thinking about making a corporate change." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I got somebody wants to work for themselves." And if any of you, and there've been plenty, former account managers or whoever. Anybody who has gone to My Perfect Franchise and worked with Andy Ludecky and now have a business, and I know that's a bunch of people on the DawgVent that have done that, let me know what your business is. Let's put a post up on the DawgVent telling everybody to go check out your business. We're not going to charge you any advertising rates or anything like that. We just want people to know that, hey, Doug's got a new roofing company. So if you're in the Austell area or something like that, hit him up. So we'll be happy to advertise or at least promote your business. So, but if you're trying to diversify, you're looking for some the ability to create some income and wealth, let Andy guide you through the 3,000 different options there are for franchises. Just, let him know that, hey, I'm looking. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. You don't have to pay him anything. So the call is free. The consulting is free. He gets paid by the franchisee people. So don't worry about it. It's just reach out to him. It's a no-brainer. So reach out to him when you get a chance. And also, I mention our friends over at Athens Ford, fantastic sponsors of not only our show, but our podcast and our watch along show and the UGASports website. They're up to 300 vehicles now. I saw it was like 370 the other day. It's been in the 200s. It's been as high as 1,100. But as COVID hit and there was the whole run on cars, it's dropped down. But they're getting more and more vehicles all the time. They're actually getting back into having sales on vehicles. They didn't have a lot of those for the longest time on the new vehicles because they just didn't have enough new vehicles to do that. But now there's special financing, special deals. And, of course, they have that new mobile service where you actually, if you're in the 20 miles of Athens, you need the oil changed, you need a battery changed out or something like that, get a flat tire. Any of the kind of simple stuff they can do, they will send a mobile van out to your place of work. They'll send the van to your home and do it for you right there on the spot. So you don't have to take your car in to get it fixed. So hit up Athens Ford when you get a chance and check out Andy Ludecky.
One of the things I wanted to bring up from watching some Tennessee film for Film Don't Lie that we do with Brent Rollins is how Tennessee has struggled, and this is pretty common sense, when teams blitz them. It was the surprising thing that Alabama did not attack the pocket. When Pitt did it, Tennessee made more mistakes in the passing game. So that tells me, one, Jalen Carter obviously will have an impact on this game, but then what does he open up beside him? I think Michael Williams, the name that Coach just mentioned a few minutes ago, is going to be big for Georgia. The other thing, and we've seen this happen on a few occasions, Malachi Starks has to play a really clean game in coverage. Tennessee will target Malachi Starks, and his performance, I think, could very well determine how this game goes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the pressure, but hard to really in their offense to target Malachi as a safety because he's over the top type guy. But you can certainly target the nickel and the dime guy. If all of a sudden we play dime and Malachi's in there, we could see him targeting him. But I don't see us playing a lot of split safety coverage against these guys. If we do, that means we feel like we can get enough rush on them and play 500 man, and you give away the quarterback runs in. It's just going to be a kind of a chess match, but certainly based on Saturday, it was obvious that was a bad read by Malachi, and he just came off the hash wrong. I mean, he's playing too deep coverage. You got to get deeper than the deepest guy and come off the hash. He was trying to anticipate, and he's going to make some mistakes, but we'll see how that works.
Coach, when I look at this team, and I was watching the film breakdown that the Film Don't Lie guys did, Dayne and I thought Brent did a great job breaking it down. It just watching Tennessee line up almost out of bounds, and then watching their offensive line heel to heel with all this space in the middle to work for. It looks very effective. You know, if you spread out to cover the wide receivers, they gash you with the run. If you come on the inside, they gash you on the outside. Has anybody really beaten this offense? Is there, in other words, I'm sure it's been tried in other places. Has somebody looked at it and said, okay, this is how you beat it?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, it's a derivation of the Baylor offense. That's where it started.
Art Briles.
And the way Heupel picked it up is he hired one of the guys that coached on the Baylor staff when he was at Missouri. This guy from Baylor came over and helped Heupel put it in. So we played against it 2 years against Heupel when he was coaching at the Missouri Tigers. And, you know, they hurt us a little bit in the game here, that one quarter where they had some really deep balls. And, you know, but we still beat them very badly because their defense was bad. Out there, we really did a good job against them. It just depends. It's not the fail-safe, all-healing thing. If everybody thought it was, it'd be more teams running it. But
exactly.
It just depends.
Who stopped it? Who shuts it down?
It just depends on, but basically you've got to stop the run enough where they just can't keep going to the run and making first downs, because every time you make a first down, 3 more chances to take a shot or 3 more chances for this quarterback to pick you apart. They run 4 wide receivers and they use them different ways. When the ball's on the hash mark, they like to stack their receivers into the boundary one-on-one, both of them close. And if you don't put significant pressure on those guys, they'll throw a bevy of screens over there and make 7, 8, 10 yards right off the bat because you don't have quick run support. But once you get over there on them with 2 guys close, then they'll run a myriad of picks to get one of them open over the middle or down the boundary. And then to the field, the wide slot guy, they're going to figure out how you're going to play that guy. And that's where Hyatt plays a lot of times. And if you're playing him with a safety or a star guy, not a really good cover guy, then they're going to work on him man to man, either breaking post or breaking flag or just throwing the fade to the inside receiver. So very similar to what Ohio State did against Alabama in the national championship game when they had Ezekiel Elliott, and they just wore the star out for Alabama. They just killed them throwing the ball in, but and behind him and running the RPOs to Ezekiel Elliott. So it's going to be, I think more distinct for me would be what we're going to do and what we think we can do to stop the run is going to certainly add what we do to stop the pass. So if we think we can stop it with a 4 and 5 man box, then that leaves you with 7 or 6 guys to defend. And I think more times than not, to the field, whether they're in 3-by-1 or 2-by-2, you've got to have 3 over 2 out there. You got to have somebody helping that slot guy, either inside out, bracket, trap, something where Christopher Smith is helping Bullard or Lassiter or Tyke Smith, whoever's playing that slot. And then your 2 corners are just going to be on an island. They're going to be playing either press man or bail man, the one into the boundary and then the one into the field.
So Tennessee's a very well-coached team. They're aware. And so do you remember the play, Roddy, where in Florida, Anthony Richardson looks over and he sees that Georgia has 1 guy on 2 receivers, and it's an immediate throw. Let's get our 8 yards and move on to the next play. Tennessee does that expertly. They're always aware of the numbers in the space. And the other thing, there was even a play against Kentucky where Tennessee had a guy that was limping, and Kentucky thought, well, he's going to the sideline. He's getting off the field. We can substitute right now. Well, he just lined up right beside it, as Tennessee does, right beside the sideline. And there's a penalty on Kentucky for having too many players in the field because they weren't allowed to substitute. This is going to be preparation and coaching, because Tennessee will force you into mistakes if those things are lacking.
Right. That's their style. And conditioning is paramount, too. Kirby was talking about that on Monday. Last year we had some guys that had some injuries that got well quick that slowed them down a few times. I don't know how that's going to happen this year, but occasionally you can have a guy have his ingrown toenail hurt and then he has to stop for a second. But I'm not saying that we did that on purpose, but it happened several times. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that you got to be aware of and watching the game here, and I hope CBS is on top of it. When they really hurt you is when they make a first down running or a short pass, and then they huddle up, they run a play very quickly. You better be ready. As soon as they make that first down, they're going to snap the ball and try to get you either out of place or without a call or misaligned. And they're very good at it. And we've worked hard on it. Killed Alabama. I mean, the other thing that I couldn't believe Alabama did was just rush 3 the whole game. I mean, Will Anderson was a non-entity in that game. He did nothing. You just figure you just cut the guy loose. So I'll be surprised if we don't have a minimum of 4, maybe 5 rushers every down in this game.
Yeah, kind of like that, like Pitt did, as you guys pointed out on Film Don't Lie, just sending people. I like it, and especially if you can get to him, hit him a bunch of times. Don't give him time. Of course, he's quick though. But I think you both nailed on what my biggest issue was, or my biggest fear was that you get used to that. Okay, you see the first down notification, and you feel like you have time. As the chain moves. That it kind of the standard flow of the game, and you're so used to, okay, well, I can walk back to the huddle, or I can walk over to get lined up, or I can put my hands on my hips and look over the coach, get the call. No, they love to just gash you when you're not expecting it. So
here's the other thing about Hendon Hooker. He played quarterback at Virginia Tech and had a okay career there. I mean, they lost to Liberty when he was the quarterback for Virginia Tech. Liberty beat him. And as good as he is, they had the whole spring practice, fall practice last year, and he wasn't the starting quarterback. They picked Milton over him, the kid that transferred from Michigan. So he has developed into the system, and the system's worked with him. But that in itself kind of tells me, hey, this guy wasn't just all inspiring when he came in there. You know what I mean? He didn't. Here's a Heupel, who's this offensive genius. He didn't think he was good enough to be a starting quarterback, and then all of a sudden, now he is. So there's some things that he might not do as well when pressured that we might find out Saturday.
And as much as I think that the narrative in this game is about what's happening with receivers, what's happening with secondary, the main reason that Alabama rushing 3 against Tennessee was frankly kind of stupid is you get no cumulative effect of making Tennessee's offensive line tired throughout the game. And what Georgia needs to do in this game is win at the line of scrimmage. And to do that, you need to have those guys working early and offensive. When the fourth quarter comes, they're not as fresh. And that's a way that Georgia has been able to win in recent years. And we have to see if Tennessee has that in them.
The other thing is Kirby calling out our fans. I mean, every time they get a 5-yard penalty for illegal procedure, that's a better chance we got at getting them off the field. 1st and 15, 2nd and 12, 3rd and 11, man, those are a lot harder. So we saw the Arkansas game last year, how we affected that game, the crowd. And, they use the count that, like everybody, they got all kind of different counts, but crowd noise is going to be effective here too. And let's just call it like it is. They got to come in here at Sanford Stadium and a team that's won a lot of games here, hasn't lost a game in over two and a half years in this stadium. And, they want to be competitive with Georgia and all that and feel like all these things, but let's don't sell ourselves short. I mean, sometimes you start looking and worrying about the other team and not enough about your own team, what we can do good. I really feel I like this matchup. I like the challenge of it. And, I feel like our offensive guys are really feel like they're kind of being overlooked from the national perspective. Everybody's talking about Tennessee and everything, but Tennessee,
a 13-17 game, Coach.
Tennessee's defense is getting ready to see some mashers coming at them. I promise you.
Speaking of, we saw that Xavier Truss got injured in the game. How big? If Xavier Truss can't go, how big is that for Georgia?
Yeah, I like Willock. I've liked him ever since he got here, and he came in and did a good job. He had a 15-yard penalty, but you also got Erickson, who's solid. He's smart when the team's blitzing like they do. Hey, if they feel like the answer to us is blitzing us, I hope that's what they do, because we got a savvy quarterback. We got an offensive line that can pick that stuff up. I think we've only given up 7 sacks all year. So, and one real misnomer, everybody talks about Tennessee's rushing defense. The reason their defensive numbers are up there was because they get all these sacks and lost yardage plays, and that goes against your rushing defense. I think we'll run the ball very effectively on these guys, and we'll make some big plays. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do when we're challenged like we were against Oregon. Our team came out there and met the challenge. I feel like we can do the same.
Well, I want to ask too, just Coach, about the volume of offensive linemen battling injuries. So you mentioned Truss. You have Amarius Mims have his knee injury. He might be able to play. We'll see. Might not. And then also Warren McClendon has been playing a little banged up. So do you feel good about Georgia's reserve offensive linemen shuffling in there?
Not as good as I would if all of a sudden these guys were coming in as the first backups. But I like Erickson coming in there. I think he can do the job. If Mims is down, that hurts us at tackle because we don't have any experienced guys that have played tackle. Ernest Green out for the year with the back. So I don't know what we would do there, but it's going to be up in the air about Mims, I guess. But the fact that Kirby said he didn't think it was too bad compared to maybe what Carter's was. Carter had to miss a couple of weeks, but.
So here's my question, Coach. I know you're in the Hall of Fame as having had a offense that led the nation in rushing and an offense that led the nation in passing. So for me, when I think about Georgia's offense in this game, I think about Kenny McIntosh ran like a man. He had that one fumble, and then he was so pissed off after that. He ran some people over and just looked like a man possessed. Dajon Edwards just scooting through that quick twitch that he has. Branson Robinson killed a safety or a corner. I don't know who it was. He just ran over a guy, just beat him up. You saw them go right at Brenton Cox and drag him into the end zone. And I know you feel bad about Brenton Cox no longer being on the Gators. We'll cry after the show. But then you also have the tight ends. And when I wrote my column last week, I said I'd love to just see them feed the tight ends. We saw that in the first half, then they stopped in the second half. Again, to your point, there weren't a whole lot of snaps in the third quarter, but I want to feed Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers, get them as many touches as possible, because I don't think Tennessee has anybody that can meet up with them. But also that running back core and that big offensive line, like you said, here come these mashers. If you're mashing the ball, running it down their throat, Hendon Hooker's on the sideline. You're eating up clock. They don't need a lot of clock. They have the least amount of time of possession of anybody in the league, but they also score more points than anybody. But it's just long drives where your defense is fresh when they actually go out there. Do you lean more on the run game of this one, or do you just feed those great tight ends over and over again?
Yeah, I think you got to look at what you think you can execute, knowing that their style is to try to pressure you.
Okay.
We can pick up the different. There's certain runs that you run on blitzes, and there's certain, like quick pitch or the quick screens and things like that. And then your play action sometimes not as good against that because they got a run through guy. But I think you can probably see some of the stuff we saw last year against Tennessee, maybe a few more bootlegs, a few more on the move type stuff to avoid that pressure. And the misdirection hurts that stuff. We're really getting good at the counter play. We're using Bowers as a turn-up guy. And I think that really hurts the defense because you take care of all the gaps by blocking down. And they're really careful about that. And they have to start coming from the outside. And then when you come from the outside, you're giving away who's playing man coverage. So if a corner's blitzing, the safety's got to go over the top and help cover the guy. If the outside backer's coming, then the free safety's got to come over there and play man on your tight. So it's going to be a chess match for their defense against us too. But, just deep down, like I said, I mean, there's some warts there. I mean, you gave up 450 yards passing to Anthony Richardson. I mean, and he's a good quarterback, good runner, but good Lord. You got to look at Stetson's accuracy compared to his. And also almost 450 to Bryce Young, who really did it, was kind of Houdini against Alabama, the way he jumped around he doesn't have near the protection that we have. So they're going to get some lost yardage plays on us. That's what happens when you take chances. But I like the matchup, our offense versus their defense. I mean, I like it. I love it.
I don't see. Again, I mentioned the turnovers. Georgia's been the games they struggled in, Kent State, Missouri, and although, I mean, you won handily, but you were trailing against Missouri. That third quarter against Florida, it's when you give the ball over 3 times and stuff like that. When Georgia's in positive territory, they just kill teams going away. But when I look back at what Tennessee's done to these other teams, I'm like, you've made them play terrible. LSU didn't play great. Alabama played awful, although they scored 50 points. They had 17 penalties, a record-setting number of penalties against them. Kentucky played poorly. To your point, Georgia's been in this situation before. They just played for a national title. Remember, they're supposed to lose to Michigan. Michigan was the number 2 team in the nation, and Georgia went out there and just pantsed them. They had the big opening against Oregon. They had the big opener against Clemson, a top 5 matchup to start last season. Georgia's been here before. I don't see them having 17 penalties. To your point, they've been working on them all year. I think some folks need to have a little faith in Kirby Smart. My biggest fear, though, is just the fact that Nolan's not out there. I'd feel a lot better if Nolan was healthy.
The thing about turnovers, where does a turnover happen? If it happens on their end of the field, then it doesn't bother me. And you're going to have interceptions. Brett Favre, all-time great quarterback, has the most interceptions of any quarterback that's ever lived. I mean, you got to throw it up there, man. You got to take some shots. And look how many drops we had the other day. Darnell Washington had 3 drops himself, not to mention the one that McConkey dropped right through his arms on the one, which was huge. So the thing that I talk about in big games, you say, is, hey, one of the biggest things is when you got a chance to make a play, you can't say my bad because you didn't make it. You got to make it in a game like this because you might not get another shot at it.
Yeah, you have seen Warren McClendon was asked about that fumble that he didn't fall on, and his face just dropped. He's like, I thought I had it. Because we work on it all the time, you know.
Warren didn't do, which everybody, I talked to Dayne, when you get ready to fumble recover ball, you got to cradle up like the fetal position. Once you dive on a ball, all it's going to do is fall out of there. You got to come in there sliding, put your arms out and cradle it. And he didn't use the right technique. The effort was there, but you got to go in there sideways and get the ball and cradle it. You can't pounce on it like that. So that was a bad fumble for us, and that was really the only turnover we had on our end of the field.
I got you one for you, Dayne. So going with how Coach said you attack this Tennessee offense, seems to me like, if you can stop the run with 4 or 5 guys, is your MVP when the game's over Dumas Johnson?
I mean,
on him.
Georgia's linebackers are going to be key in this, both helping defend the pass, but then also helping stop the run there. I mean, that's how Georgia's kind of become the defensive dynasty it is, with really good inside linebacker play. You think about the guys last year that helped win the national championship. One of those guys are here, and Smile Munden's coming off an injury.
I'm just thinking this is his breakout game where with Georgia's victorious, there was like Dumas Johnson. And yesterday they were who do we speak to? I can't remember the guy. Zion Lowe was talking about him. He says, I've seen flashes of Nakobe and Dumas Johnson, and he's laser focused. And Coach, I'm thinking if Georgia's successful in this game, maybe it's because Dumas Johnson and we know he's had a breakout year, but maybe this is the one where he really cements himself.
He's got a chance. But the keys in a game like this, defensively, one, open field plays. Can you get the guys down when you got a chance to make a tackle on some kind of bubble screen or a tunnel screen or quick screen? Get them down. Don't let them get 3 or 4 yards after contact on that. Make it 2nd and 8 instead of 2nd and 4. Open field tackling when it's you and the guy, you're the last guy. Get him down. You got to get him. You can't have busted missed tackles there in the open field. Also, playing the ball in the air. When you got a chance to knock it down, you got to knock it down. We got a chance to pick it off. You can't say, God, I wish I'd have caught that. This guy's going to throw with more velocity than the defensive back coach throwing you little tip drills and stuff. You got to catch you. So we'll work doubly hard on the ball machine this week with our linebackers and our secondary, just to emulate the velocity. And then the other thing is, how's the game going to be called? Are they going to let us engage these guys down the field, or are they going to call everything little nitpicking like? And I mentioned that in big games, but seriously, the refs make it tough if you lose your aggressiveness, because if you're going to play press coverage, and Kirby likes man coverage, I mean that's what he likes. You're going to have to engage the guys and knock them off their route a little bit and hope that the rush gets to them. Otherwise, if you're a little gun shy about it, then those guys are going to get by you, and he can throw the deep ball as good as anybody. I mean, he lays it out there. And last but not least, hope that they pee down their leg a couple times and drop some.
Yeah.
I mean, the band's going to be playing. Occasionally, you see these good players. And I'm just going to tell you one quick story here. Are you going to give us a commercial here? But I got.
No, go ahead. Give the story. Then I'll talk.
I'm just going to give you a story here that I like to talk about in big games. Serge Bubka was the all-time leading pole vaulter in Russia. And going into the Olympics in 92, I think it was 92, he had never even lost any pole vaulting competition, not once. He never anybody even came close to him. But now he's going for the big prize. He's going for the Olympic gold medal in the pole vault. So 15 feet he passes, 16 feet he passes. That means he didn't even go.
Right. Yeah.
So he gets on up there. So now he's got his first shot at it, and he goes and he doesn't get over. No problem. I've never been beat. I'm Serge Bubka. I've never had this kind of pressure on me, but I can handle it. Second time he goes on that same deal. He doesn't get over. Now it's down to, hey, The band's playing. Everything's going on. I got to do it, and the heat's on me. Can I get over the bar? And he didn't do it. The all-time the best ever at pole vaulting couldn't get over when he had to do it. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Tennessee. They want to be what they got to be. They got to come down into Sanford Stadium. They're going against some guys that know how to win. Can they get over the bar? Can they do it?
You're right. Georgia had to do it too. I mean, you remember last year they
do
lost
it. So, I mean,
somebody to Alabama. They had that game.
It's just a lot of pressure on you. I mean,
yeah.
And particularly if they get off to a poor start, a lot of times things like that happen. And like Florida last week, they got off to a poor start, and even though they regrouped a little bit, it was too late. But you're not going to come back against Georgia very much, I don't think. Not the way our team does. Our guys, we know too much about them, and these are our fans, and we don't give these guys enough credit. I mean, God, they're a good football team. You got a lot of discipline. They don't make stupid penalties. I mean, you got to be proud when you walk out of the stadium and just watch this team play. I mean, you see all these things happening around college football, guys getting in fights in the locker room and smoking dope in the locker room and all that. You don't hear any of that bullshit about Georgia.
No.
And I wrote a column that's on UGASports today. I think this is the final piece of a dynasty for Georgia, of becoming that team that is so feared that they are winning before the game starts. Mike Leach said this about Alabama earlier this year, that if you want a Mississippi State player to be afraid of the team across from them, just put Alabama on the jersey, because that's how they play. Can Georgia's reputation and aura and what Sanford Stadium and everything that comes with it, can that make Tennessee feel like it's trailing from the beginning? I think this is the test of that. It did for Arkansas last year.
Yeah, and you give Tennessee credit. They got the monkey off their back against Alabama and Florida this year. I mean, two teams that they've had a hard time with, but they almost didn't do it on either one of them. And they got a shaky field goal kicker. I mean, this guy, kicks more balls, spirals on field goals than I've ever seen. And the protection, I mean, they're very vulnerable to. I hope they let Carter come in there and try to jack them up a little bit. I mean, we could block some kicks on them.
I want to mention our friends over at Dead Sox. We talk about something that has a good kick. I don't know if that kicker's not wearing the right socks, but if he did, then maybe his kicks would be a little bit more accurate. They wouldn't be that wobbly thing that he beat Alabama with. Hopefully, Georgia's been able to get some of these athletic socks from Dead Sox and put them on the Georgia players. And I hope you have your lucky socks to wear this Saturday when Georgia takes on Tennessee. They're fantastically when it comes to comfort. They don't slide down your leg. If you got big fat calves like mine, you always worry. They feel like you're being strangled. When you pull up some of these socks that are too tight. These actually do not do that. But they don't also stretch out, then slide down. So you're constantly pulling your socks up, like I'm constantly pulling up my sleeves when I'm sitting there doing the show. Check out our friends at Dead Sox. Remember, if you use promo code UGASports, you'll get 20% off. It's going to be 25% off. So hit up our friends at deadsoxy.com. Try it out. Now, every week on the DawgVent, we have a score prediction. I'll put that up here in a minute. The winner, the person who gets closer to the score prediction, gets a little prize pack from our friends at Dead Soxy. So they're giving out 15 prize packs a year. They did it last year as well. So again, these are college people who, two Ole Miss grads who love college football, and they're excited about their Rebels right now. But they also make them for Georgia fans, for Alabama fans, for LSU fans, because they just love college football. So hit them up when you get a chance.
They better give some socks to Lane Kiffin. Keep him there.
Exactly. Speaking of Lane Kiffin, he's in that he's at Ole Miss. Not far from there is our friends over in New Orleans. This is the Prime Shrimp Company. They make great shrimp. It comes to you frozen. If you want their signature seasoned or their French Quarter Alfredo or their garlic herb butter, you order it online. It comes to you frozen with a little block of dry ice. You take it out, you stick it in your freezer. When you decide you want great shrimp, you just basically boil some water, drop in the bag, pull it out, cut open the bag. Your shrimp is done. You don't have to thaw it. It's no fuss, no muss. It's incredibly simple. So use promo code UGASports and you'll get $20 off your first order. Now, considering a lot of this shrimp does not cost $20, like say you get the signature season, that's 2 packages, it's $18. If you get $20 off your first order, so go ahead and get the garlic herb butter that's like 20, and then get your signature season for free. So hit up our friends at primeshrimp.com when you have a moment. All right, Dan, you want to bring in some questions?
Yep, we have 10 minutes left in the show, so we'll try to be quick with our responses so we can get to as many as possible.
Yeah.
Let's go to Strict Dog 7. How important is Stetson's running ability on Saturday? Do we see more play action in boots versus the 5 and 7 step drops?
I hope so. I mean, that's what I would do. Whether we will or not, I can't really project, because we like to drop back. I mean, that's our style. We drop back more. But as I mentioned earlier in the show, last year against them, we moved him more than we did any game. So maybe we'll do it again.
From OU Herschel Walker, Coach, who do you think is most likely to fill in for Nolan Smith? Is it Beal, Chambliss, Sherman, Jones, or maybe Sorey and Jalen Walker? And then he also said, do you think that Georgia puts a spy for obvious passing downs on Hooker?
Yeah, I think you mentioned every one of those guys. Maybe they might look some at Sorey and Jalen Walker athletically, have the ability to, and particularly when you know that you're not going to have them the rest of the year. Maybe for one game you might try to get by, but you got to build up for not only this game, but hopefully the playoffs and everything. And you don't want a lesser player on the field when you got a better athlete that plays another position. So I could see him using maybe training those guys. I don't know if they'll be ready to go. As far as spies, sure, you got to have one to watch out for this guy moving with the ball when he gets off his spot, because he can make first downs, and that's what they're looking for. He's very good at but he's also a very slight-looking guy. He's not real thick, and we got to pound him. I mean, we got a chance to hit him. We got to hit him and make him think about it a little bit.
From RecDog27, do you agree that Monken and Smart will go a bit old school and play the bully ball approach? He said if you play mistake-free and play the time of possession game against Tennessee, that can and play extremely physical in fourth quarter, he says, I just don't see the need for running tempo and trading shots.
I just don't ever see us running bully ball here. That's not our style. I mean, I wish we'd do more of it, but we're a pro team that throws the ball, looks to throw the ball first and then runs. But Kentucky couldn't do it against them. I don't think we're going to line up and try to do a lot of tempo and try to match their scores. But I do feel like our defense will stop them some, and their defense will stop us some. I don't see a Donnybrook like Alabama game myself, but what I meant by us, that's just not our style. We don't look to run the ball near as much as we look to throw it.
From Coach on the DawgVent, Coach Donnan, what was the biggest, in quotes, game that you were involved in as a player and as a coach?
I think playing in the Houston Astrodome when they were ranked up there right in the top 5 in the country, and we went in there and upset them. And I had a pretty good game. It was big on the road, and then as a coach, playing for the national championship and winning it several times, playing for it and losing it several times was just as much fun, but except the end result. But that's why you play and coach, play in championship games, and that's what Kirby's talking to our team about. This essentially is a championship game for us, because I don't see anybody else beating Tennessee the rest of the year. We certainly got 2 tough games left after this, but it's why you come to Georgia playing games like this.
From GoDogs 1371, he says, Coach, in your experience in big games as an assistant and as a head coach, do you feel like if talent's equal, that the more established team has the advantage, or does it favor the up-and-coming team? Does Georgia's experience in playing in the playoffs and SEC championship games carry over? How would you advise Kirby Smart and the rest of the staff and the players with a game like this? Let's see, since as the OC for Oklahoma, y'all played in a game like this seemingly every year.
Yeah, you're talking to your team about situations that occurred during the game, and you practice that all week, and you refer to them. This is what happened to us against so and so. This is how we reacted, and this is why we're here where we are, because we knew how to handle this. And you're also, and and I've made this analogy about going into exams and taking tests and all when you're prepared and you know the material is one thing, but being relaxed when you go in to take it and enjoying the moment as comparing to being really tense about it. So we just tell our teams preparation gets you ready, and we're going to have you ready. And our players have tremendous belief in Kirby Smart. They know that he's going to put them in the best position, and then after that, it's up to them. And I always talk to your players about proper technique and knowledge of assignment. And if you know your assignment and you know have the proper technique, then usually the team that had the most guys that have the athletes are going to win because you don't beat yourself. Last thing, most games are lost; they're not won. Coaching
about turnovers.
You look at the coaching mistakes that Bill O'Brien and Coach Saban made at the end of that game. Just really poor. I mean, you don't ever give the other team a chance to win the game in regulation when you can win it. At least you can get it to overtime. And they gave them another 17 seconds. So that's coaching. We got a guy that's really sharp on the sideline. He's got a lot of help. I think having Mike Bobo now around during the games is another plus because he is kind of the analytics guy, and he can go right to Kirby about the situations, that they've talked about in their pregame and all week and remind him of it right there on the sideline. So he's huge for us too.
Let's get this from Monday Morning QB, then we'll take a break and get the last of the questions. Is Jalen Carter being back actually more important than losing Nolan Smith because he sets up so shallow when passing?
Yeah, I think at this point you gotta use that. I mean, you got to use it just because you don't have the other guy, and you talk to your team about it. Look, we're gonna have to. Somebody's gonna have to fill the void, but it's not like we're not playing without Carter and Smith. So you go with what you got and adjust accordingly. We got other guys that can rush the passer. I promise you that. You saw Williams come inside the other day as an underneath guy. So I don't know that the sacks are going to be near as critical as the hurries, getting the hands up. If we could get 3 knockdowns, I mean, just 3 tipped balls at the line of scrimmage or linebackers running underneath something, that's 3 less they can catch. So, you set your goals along those lines too.
Yeah, I agree with him. I think getting Carter back, you hate losing Nolan, but you have guys that could kind of do what he does, but I don't know that anybody replaces Jalen Carter. He's just a beast in the middle. Speaking of a beast, there's a new pizza over at Your Pie. The spicy Italian pizza is here. It looks phenomenal. It's today's a good day to order it, or order it now for if you want to order it for Saturday. Place your order today on Tuesday because it's double points day, so that when you use your Pie app, you get your double points. So you go ahead and say, look, the game's at 3:30. I want to pick this up at wherever your tailgate is. I want to pick it up from this location. They're all over the state. I've mentioned the one in LaGrange. I mentioned the I was driving up 75 and I saw one way down there. I think it was like in Valdosta or someplace. It was really, really far south. I know there's one in McDonough. So they're all over the place. So if you have a chance, go to Your Pie. The one in Covington's phenomenal. There's one in Loganville, Monroe, of course.
Downtown Dublin has one. Shout out Dublin.
Just saying. So hit up any of the Your Pie locations. Let them know that, hey, I want that spicy Italian, and I'm going to order. You can have it for dinner today. You can have it for lunch, a late lunch now. You can get a salad. You can get the breadsticks. You can get the gelato. You can get beer. Anything you want over there, and just do it and get the double points today. Also, I want to mention our friends at Academia Brewing Company. That is a great place to go. They're just celebrating a new anniversary. They've got a game day beer out. I know that Matt Casey, the founder of it, he's got videos of him in Jacksonville. He's a huge, huge dog fan. So he was down in Jacksonville having a blast. They had a huge celebration for Halloween. They have some open jobs over there. So they need a kitchen manager. They need a front-end manager. Of course, I guess tomorrow is the the bike night because they have, excuse me, this Thursday, the first Thursday of every month, they have a bike night. So hit up for bike night this coming Thursday. And of course, then Sunday, they'll have the car show along with their beer and biscuit brunch. So check out our friends at Academia Brewing Company. Check out their new game day beer. If you're coming in for the game this week, be sure to stop by there either on your way in or your way out, or if you don't have tickets, watch it there.
All right, let's run through these really quickly. From North Buckhead Dog, Coach, how does Georgia handle the emotions of such an enormous game early, knowing that Tennessee typically gets off to a fast start?
Yeah, I mean, you just go back to your coaching and your teaching and just say, look, we got to be careful about being too aggressive and overplaying your technique and not doing what you're supposed to and making a mental error. And you warn them about that, but you also understand that everybody's not perfect. You're going to have some mistakes, but we just got to limit those. And that's the way I keep going back to our practices, but our practices are very difficult. They put them in a lot of stressful situations, and he's on them. I mean, he's right on top of everything. I mean, he doesn't miss anything. If the manager doesn't put the ball exactly where he wanted it, I mean, he's on it. I mean, he knows all that stuff. So, I mean, I've never seen a guy that had total control like he does.
Mikey P had asked about the philosophy of Tennessee's offense. We hit on that earlier. Another question about Georgia's game plan against them. We hit on that. From Two Dogs Walking, are there any calculated risk that you take on defense to pick off one of those swing passes?
Ooh, Two Dogs Walking. I like that. Yeah, that sounds like that Indian that named his kid. But anyhow, the deal here is as far as a swing pass, that's taking a pretty big chance. But once in a while, you can tell the end that you can give him a feint call where you look like you're going in and then you take a step up and then bounce out on the swing and hope you can get a hand on it or maybe knock it down like Lorenzo Carter did for the Falcons the other day. So that was more of a screen pass. But I think the feint deal where you act like you're rushing hard and then bounce out there is a way to do it. And you can't just line up against a really good quarterback, whether it's Tennessee, whoever it is. If they know their system, you got to remember they do that every day. They're based on their reads, what they do. And you got to make them make a couple mistakes. And the way you do that is show them something and then go to something else from that preliminary look.
I think when you told us about how Georgia rotated its safeties against Alabama in that game where Chris Smith had the pick, where one guy, they spun him. I never saw that. And the fact that they implanted that the week going into the game and it worked like a charm, I'm like, yeah, well, that's genius.
Two more here to wrap.
Did the same thing with McCown on Tua.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. I got it backwards.
Well,
From PA Dog, Coach, would you use Bear Alexander more than he's been used? He seems like a disruptor on the inside pass rush.
I think you keep using Bear. I mean, he's getting better all the time. To me, Trey Scott's a very good developer. I mean, this kid missed spring with his shoulder, and he's just a puppy type. I guess you call him a cub. I mean, he's a bear cub. You know, he's coming along, but he's definitely got a lot of physical traits that are going to be good in the future. And I like the way he's responded. And there goes again, going against our offense all day. He gets to practice against some good linemen, and he understands you just can't use your physical traits. You got to get some technique because these guys are going to, get leverage on you. So you just can't overpower people. You got to use some swim moves. You got to use some two-step things. And there's a lot of value in practicing against our offensive line.
And finally, from Double Deuce Dog, if you were the coach this weekend against Tennessee, would you have your team drink pickle juice?
Well, pickle juice is part of our program over there. And the reason you use it is to help against having, cramps. It's going to be about 78, maybe 80 degrees. So we got plenty of depth. Pickle juice is good. Powerade. There's a lot of different things to use. Some of our players get IVs at halftime just to rejuice you up. I think maybe some of the coaches probably going to need an IV too. It's going to be high.
Some of the fans definitely will.
It'll be high intensity, but
those fan IVs are usually ASW distillery bourbon straight into the veins.
I tell you what I like
with a flask and a boot.
What I think that was a good question from what's his name, Double Dog,
Double Deuce Dog,
Double Duke Dog. What I really think that the fans would like to know is we have a lady assigned under Collier Perno, who is our lady that handles nutrition. But just like you have an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, she has a person that's in charge of the vitamins and the different types of needs that each player has. And every day at practice, they have their own certain little pills that they take that are conducive to their own practice habits of what they need to make them better. So that lady sets up an individual cup for each player every day. I mean, now, did you know that, Roddy?
I did not, but I was thinking, what would mine wouldn't be a cup; it'd be one of these size mugs full of Aleve and
you had some pure hate,
high blood pressure medicine. But
some
I want
pure.
to know what IV that they put in Anthony Richardson, because he got banged up on the first play, then second half came out feeling great, running the ball all over the place. I'm like, what did he have at halftime?
But I think it's just good that the players are going to be with the system, the GPS system that watches them during practice and sees how their weight affects their practice habits, their nutrition, all that. I mean, these guys are monitored to be optimum performance on Saturday. I think it's great.
That's a wrap. All right, Kirk, there's a lot of questions here in the comments, Coach. I'll ask you two of them real quick. Loelo Joe says, do you see any trick plays in this game?
Sure. I mean, everybody likes to call them special plays. Well, you look for something, some kind of gadget will get you an extra first down or get you a big play. We had one the other day. We ran the yo-yo play, or as people call it, the flea flicker, and there was miscommunication between McConkey and where he ran and where Stetson threw the ball. And really based on the coverage, Stetson should have come off of that and thrown the underneath route, because he was, he's very – if the guy's either wide open or not on the flea flicker. And then but I like special plays. I tell our players all week long, look, you only got one chance to run this. You got a chance to pull their pants down right in front of 92,000 people. Are you going to be the guy that keeps us from doing that? So you've got to be really on top of it, execute your assignment, and the only way this play won't work is if one of us does something they're not supposed to. We ran a flea flicker against a team last year, and the guy that was supposed to be going down to catch it didn't get the signal. I mean, how can that happen? But it happens. So special plays, trick plays are good. I mean, Halloween last night, let's carry it over to Saturday.
There you go. And last question from Thomas Stewart. Is Marvin Jones Jr. starting on the defensive line this Saturday? I doubt he starts, but what do you think about Marvin Jones Jr. getting in there?
I like Marvin.
He hasn't played a lot, though, Coach, and he's got to be smart in this game.
That's okay. He's come around, though. I mean, the guy's practiced hard. He's been going against Broderick Jones and McClendon all fall. He's not going to see anybody better on Saturday than what he's practiced against. He might not go in there and be as good as as an experienced guy, but he's very talented, and he gives you a lot of hope for the future. I mean, the defensive players that we got on this freshman team are very, very good. I mean, Starks, Williams, just Walker, just go through all those secondary guys, Everett. I mean, we got some really good players there.
Love it. All right, folks, appreciate you sticking around with us. That's all the time we have for this week's show. I want to give a shout out again.
Make sure to watch later in the week. Now, Dayne, you tell them when they're going to be on there, right?
We'll have one later tomorrow and one on Thursday.
Yeah, so we're going to have Paul Feinbaum and Reese Davis on shows, and I know a lot of people were talking about going on Feinbaum, and I just love the fact that Paul Feinbaum comes on our show. That's just that rocks. And of course, Reese Davis is a phenomenal watch. He's one that predicted when Georgia won the title last year. He said, "Hey, when Georgia wins, it's going to be a blowout," and he nailed it. So. Shout out to the two of them for giving Coach and Dayne time later in this week. And, of course, we will have our recruiting show later tonight. Then we'll have Around the League on Thursday, and tons of fun stuff popping up. And none of this would be possible without our friends at Athens Ford, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, Dead Soxy, Prime Shrimp, and My Perfect Franchise. We will see you folks next week to talk about the Georgia-Tennessee game and look ahead to Georgia-Mississippi.